Nobody told you this game was going to be clean, and the moment you saw the opening tip you knew this was going to be a war. Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs, and from the very first possession, both teams came out swinging like they had something to prove. The crowd inside Mitch Johnson Arena was already on their feet before a single bucket dropped, because everybody in that building understood what was at stake. 2 wins apiece. The series completely flipped on its head. And on this night, in this arena, in front of this crowd, somebody was going home with the advantage. The question was, who had the stomach for it? Victor Wembanyama opened the scoring from long range, and honestly, that shot set the tone for exactly what kind of player we were watching. This wasn't the hesitant, still learning version of Wembanyama. This was the fully evolved alien taking over a playoff game with the kind of confidence that only comes from believing, truly believing, that you are the best player on the floor. And for long stretches of this game, he pulled up from a distance that most 7-footers have no business shooting from, and it went in clean like it was nothing, like he'd been doing it his whole life. Because at this point, he basically has. The Spurs were feeding him early and often, and you could see what San Antonio was trying to do. Let the big man dictate the pace, force OKC to send multiple bodies at him, and then punish them for every rotation they got wrong. But OKC wasn't going to just roll over. Not at home. Not in this series. Not with everything on the line. The Thunder came out with that suffocating defensive energy that has defined their identity all season long, collapsing on ball handlers, switching everything with purpose, making every trip down the floor feel like a struggle for the Spurs. And it was Kelvin Johnson who quietly started making plays that didn't show up loudly in the box score but absolutely showed up on the scoreboard. Good no-call baskets, hard drives into contact, little mid-range pull-ups that kept the offense moving. He was the kind of player that coaches love and casual fans overlook, and on this night, he was exactly what Oklahoma City needed to keep pace early while their stars found their rhythm. The first 8 points for the Thunder came from a place of collective grit, shared effort, the entire team understanding that this game wasn't going to be won by one person going off early. It was going to be won by everyone buying in, everyone trusting the system, and everyone defending like their season depended on it, because it literally did. When you're down in a series and you come into Game 4 at home, there is a very specific kind of pressure in the air. The fans feel it, the players feel it, the coaches feel it. And the way OKC handled that pressure in the opening minutes said a lot about who they were as a group. Then came the moment that really got the building going. Dion Bosel with a 3-pointer that found the bottom of the net, and just like that the lead started to grow. 21-8. The Thunder had gone on an extended run that felt almost effortless, and it wasn't because San Antonio was falling apart. It was because Oklahoma City was playing with a level of intensity and precision that the Spurs simply couldn't match in those minutes. Kelvin Johnson had set the tone. He'd given the team energy, given them direction, given them belief. And his teammates had followed. Dion Bosel blocking shots. Jared McCain staying active. Victor Hardenstein protecting the paint. The collective defense of the Thunder was something to behold. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, though, the man they call SGA, was doing what great players do in big games. He was moving the ball, creating space, drawing fouls, and making his presence felt without needing to dominate the stat sheet in the first quarter. There was a moment where he passed to Jalen Williams for a triple that felt like a chess move, not a basketball play. Like SGA had seen 3 possessions ahead and knew exactly where the defense was going to be. Williams knocked it down. The crowd erupted. 9 points in a row. The lead had pushed all the way to 28-19 going into the second quarter, and OKC had the kind of momentum that feeds off itself. The second quarter opened with a 5-point swing that told you everything you needed to know about this Thunder team at home. Wide open slam dunks. Fast breaks that ended before the Spurs could even set their defense. Julian Champagnie was everywhere, swarming on defense, hustling for loose balls, converting on the other end when the opportunity came. Layup after layup, energy play after energy play, and the Spurs were starting to feel the weight of the building pressing down on them. Quinton Wallace added to it with a fast break finish that had the arena absolutely unglued. These weren't superstar plays. These were hunger plays. These were effort plays. And they mattered just as much as any step-back 3 when the game is this physical and this emotionally charged. Victor Wembanyama, though, wasn't going quietly. He drew a foul on his first personal against SGA, getting to the line and showing that even in a hostile environment, even with OKC's defense completely locked in around him, he was going to find ways to be impactful. Stephen Castle was doing his part for San Antonio as well, making smart plays, keeping the Spurs connected to the game even as the Thunder tried to push the lead to something comfortable. Stefan was the kind of secondary player that championship teams need. Somebody who doesn't flinch under pressure, somebody who makes the right read consistently, somebody who keeps the machine running when the big names are being neutralized. But then came the moment that nobody saw coming. The moment that made this game unforgettable before the halftime buzzer even sounded. Victor Wembanyama, with time winding down in the second quarter, received the ball near half-court. There were seconds left, no timeouts, and the entire arena was already starting to exhale. And then he let it fly. A half-court shot. A buzzer beater.
Clean. Swish.
The kind of shot that makes you remember exactly where you were sitting when you watched it. The Spurs bench erupted. Wembanyama jogged off the court with that long stride, that calm expression, like he fully expected it to go in. Because at some level he probably did. The alien had finished the first half with 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. A game-high performance heading into the locker room, and the message to OKC was clear. This was not going to be a comfortable second half. The third quarter started, and the Thunder came out with urgency written all over them. Victor Hardenstein was making his presence felt in the paint, Ayon Wiggins providing that physical edge that San Antonio's guards had no answer for. The lead sat at 57-41 at various points in the quarter, and OKC was trying desperately to hold onto the distance they'd built. SGA was working to stop any Spurs runs before they could gain traction, reading the game intelligently, knowing when to push and when to let the system breathe. Stephen Castle had a steal that led to a Wembanyama highlight, and just like that, the crowd felt the shift. Momentum is the most fragile thing in basketball. You build it with 5 straight stops and 1 fast break dunk, and you lose it with 2 turnovers and a blown assignment. San Antonio's defense had held OKC to 2 of 17 from 3-point range at certain points in the third quarter. 2 out of 17. 13%. That is a number that should crush a team. That is a number that invites panic, invites hero ball, invites chaos. But the Thunder didn't panic. They kept grinding through the mid-range, kept getting to the line, kept playing that ugly, physical brand of basketball that playoff games are built on. And OKC had the firepower inside to survive a cold shooting night from deep. When Wembanyama crossed the 30-point threshold in the third quarter, and the Spurs faithful watching on screens across the country had to be feeling something building. Because when a player that tall, that skilled, that unique is getting to 30 points in a road playoff game, while also defending the way he was defending, that is a generational performance. The lead had shrunk to 78-60 entering the fourth quarter, and while it still looked comfortable on paper, anyone who has watched enough basketball knows that 18 points in crunch time is not a guarantee. Not in the playoffs. Not in a series this tight. The fourth quarter belonged to the finishers. Dylan Harper was a nightmare all game long, making highlight plays with that two-handed jam that had people replaying the clip before the quarter was even over. De'Aaron Fox came up with finishing touches in the closing minutes that reminded everybody why San Antonio was dangerous right until the end. And for OKC, the 4 turnovers in that stretch were concerning. The kind of mistakes that can turn a comfortable lead into a 4-point game with 2 minutes left and your entire fan base holding their collective breath. But SGA was there when it mattered. The MVP stepped up, made the right plays, converted when it counted, and ultimately the Oklahoma City Thunder held on. Final score, Game 4 going to the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander finished with 19 points in a performance that was more about controlling than dominating, more about leadership than individual brilliance. And that, honestly, is the hallmark of a true MVP, knowing when the team needs you to score, and knowing when the team needs you to just make sure nothing goes wrong. Victor Wembanyama ended with 30 points. 30. On the road. In a game that mattered more than almost any game he has played in his young career. There are people who still talk about Tim Duncan in the same building, still feel the history of Greg Popovich's genius echoing off those walls. And now Wembanyama is writing his own chapter in that franchise story, doing things that even Duncan never did, because the game has never seen a player quite like this. Coach Pop was solid on the sideline. The backup center off the bench delivered 6 points and 6 rebounds in just 12 minutes, the kind of contribution that flies under the radar but keeps a team competitive when its stars need a breather. The series is now tied 2 games apiece, and everything is on the table. OKC took Game 4 at home, but San Antonio